Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
All right, we have an amazing guest. To sort of explain how this podcast works, a lot of times we do the interview first, and then we do this intro. So Hannah and I have already spoken with Chris.
Chris Botti, Grammy-winning trumpeter.
Yes, and I think he's had like 4 of his albums debuted at #1 on the Billboards. Yeah. He's a jazz musician, but he is a fanatic in terms of racing cars or driving cars on the track.
He's heavy into it.
Yeah, he got full bore into it, no holds barred, just head first. And by the way, I was thinking I'd love to have our listeners email us. When we get into the interview, you'll hear Chris talk about the sound of engines. And I always have thought about being able to tell the difference between, a V-twin motorcycle or an inline-4, a cars a flat 6, a V8. And I would love for people to email us and tell us which engines they like the best in terms of, sonic pleasure. Don't you think that's an interesting...
Tell us your sonic pleasure fantasies.
What is it's Hot Pursuit at Bloomberg.net. Yeah. So what is your favorite motor sound? I don't know if everyone has one favorite, because I appreciate a wide variety of motors, but...
I'll be totally forthcoming and say the engine sound is something that I notice, but I'm also not the type to not turn on a radio when I'm in a car.
No.
Yeah, I think Chris, understandably, when he's in his cars, he listens to the music of the engine note. I am not that civilized or cultivated, and I will turn up the radio full blast. So, the engine note I do notice it, but then I move on.
I mean, for me, it's a huge discussion on some cars. Like, they sound great from the outside, and they don't. My Challenger doesn't sound very good on the inside. There's a lot of drone. Some cars sound great on the inside, or fake sound is pumped in that's nice, and you can't hear anything on the outside.
That's not good.
But some cars, like my 911 would sound great in the high rev range, and it wasn't much in the low revs. So there's such a different kind of... I love a Harley with straight pipes on it, but I also like, inline 4 MotoGP bike screaming down the track.
I have to say, what I thought was really cool that Chris brought up is that somehow learning to play the trumpet is actually very similar to learning how to drive on the track. That is something I've never thought about and would have no idea about. And he kind of laid it out for us.
Yeah, very cool.
About why they're similar.
Before we get to that, when I joined the Zoom call, you guys were talking about your experience in the new Ferrari, and I want to hear all that I can about that.
Okay, so
starting with what it's called.
It's called the Ferrari 12 Cilindri, and that's Italian for 12-cylinder. So when you say you're driving the 12-cylinder Ferrari and people say, which one? You say, it's that one. It's
the 12-cylinder.
It's the 12-cylinder. 12 Cilindri is, I made them say it to me like 15 times so I could be sure to say it correctly. That's an approximation.
By the way, they have a tendency to do redundant naming strategies, right? Ferrari, LaFerrari.
I know.
And now the 12-cylinder Ferrari 12-cylinder.
I think it's like an inside joke the Italians have. They just think it's hilarious to try to make American consumers speak Italian. I think it's a big inside joke. And, they're laughing all the way to the bank.
I mean, Ducati has the Desmo Sedici, which I love.
I can't even say that. But back to the car, I really liked it. And again, I can't talk about how it drives quite yet. That's coming in October. But I love how it looks. And I've seen some very mixed responses on my social media posts about it, understandably, because I don't think it photographs great. But this is basically a Daytona in the front and sort of maybe like a GTC 4 Lusso in the rear mixed together. There's some colored body panels across the top.
2 of my favorites.
I mean, great cars. I love it. It follows the design language that started with the Roma, which to me is a great direction for Ferrari. It's toned down. It's more adult. It's more pure. It's simpler but more elegant. I really, really like it. And it's the type of car that when you look at it, you know exactly what it is. Unlike a lot of vehicles from other automakers that you're like, now, which one is that again? I can't really tell the difference.
Which Jelly Bean is that?
Right, or which McLaren is that?
So this Ferrari, I think, is one of the most beautiful cars, certainly new cars out there, except for when it's in the ugly 70s gold that they had.
Period correct. That
Horrible.
is a period correct color. It's Gallo Gallo. Oh, I gotta look. It's like Gallo Montenegro or
now
something.
I have to know.
Gallo,
you look it up, but I'll just tell you that Don Johnson would never have driven that color car in Miami Vice. I mean,
I don't know. Look, it's not my first choice, but I don't think it's quite as. It's Gallo Monte Carlo. There, Gallo Monte Carlo.
Okay.
A period correct color. It looks. It's not the worst I've seen. I'll tell you that. It's not terrible, but I would like to see it in more of like a slate gray or something.
Yeah, or red.
That chic. No, red's where. Oh no.
For
Way
a Ferrari.
Too expected. So cliche. Come on. So cliche. So expected.
Well, black in that case. That's what color.
Black would be very.
The Miami
very
Vice
cool.
Daytona was black, right?
You know, I take my cues from whenever there's a decent Ferrari up for sale on the aftermarket. The ones that aren't red are always worth more.
True, but it just looks. It's such an elegant vehicle that the gold one looked not elegant because it then has.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's chrome or whatever the. It looked like machined parts were on the bumper and in the back.
I will tell you this: the seats were sort of a mossy green, which when I first saw this combination of a sort of a gold car with mossy green seats, it gave me pause.
Yeah.
And even as I describe it, it sounds like it would be horrible. Now,
sounds like dog diarrhea.
Yeah. In real life, though, I actually think maybe this is genius. Maybe this will age great, and it'll be one of those cool cars we see from the 70s that are sort of spec'd crazy, but then you realize, no, this is amazing, and whoever did this was ahead of their time and genius. So I'm withholding my judgment on the green and yellow combo for the car, because it might be genius.
I guess, would you wear the Ferrari-inspired fashion that you were
No.
that you were showing us out of Miami? Because that was equally bad.
I'll bet you I could find a piece in that collection that I would wear mixed in with other brands. The problem that I find with people who purchase automotive-inspired fashion wear is they wear all of it.
Yes.
And that is definitely a bad idea. You know, they wear the fanny pack and the windbreaker and the hat and the shorts. No, pick one.
And that's not a typical Ferrari buyer's
Well,
mistake.
I don't know
It's more of
I
I would say a Lamborghini buyer is more likely to do that.
I don't know.
On that note, you came out, your story on the Lamborghini Revuelto came out, which is why
Yes.
I bring it up. $604,000. We've already talked about it. Obviously, you drove it on your trip to Monterey.
Mm-hmm.
But
Big fan.
I really want to drive the. In fact, I think I would rather have this than the Ferrari if it weren't as an investment, because
Quite
you know
a
the
bit more
Ferrari is going to
expensive.
appreciate. And
Why don't you think the Revuelto would appreciate?
yeah, I'm sure it will. Actually, I think it will from now. But you don't know what's going to happen in a market crash. If Bitcoin drops, to 15,000 instead of 50, Lamborghini prices are going to fall. In sympathy.
Okay, it sounds like your real gut, like your heart, might be with the Lamborghini.
It is. My heart is with Lamborghini, but
These are our confessions.
I have. Well, also I know a lot of people who work at Lamborghini. I've spent a lot of time driving Lamborghinis. I've done track days in Lamborghinis. I haven't got that kind of connection with Ferrari.
Okay.
And Ferrari is a brand that wants to hold you at arm's length until you get down on bended knee.
But some people like that.
Which Lamborghini welcomes you in with open arms.
Look, I specifically asked Ferrari on this trip, if I win the lottery tomorrow, will I be able to purchase one of these 12-cylinder machines that you are making? And the answer is yes. Anyone can buy one. It's not limited. You might have to be a little bit patient, but it's not limited. It's not going to be one of those things where you have to buy 10 other Ferraris in order to have the opportunity and the good fortune to buy this one as well. It's unlimited. If you have the money, you can put the money down and get on the list and just wait for a few months or more.
I will tell you, I would rather have a singer. I went
Matt,
downtown.
Matt, don't say that.
I went downtown.
You can't say that.
Yesterday.
You haven't driven one yet.
That's true.
You really. I'm going to stop you.
Well, okay.
You can't.
Fair. Fair. Before I drive one, I shouldn't make that. But I'll tell you, it looked so beautiful, and it's so small compared to a modern 911. Now, I guess it's true of any 964 or, previous. But I sat in it, and I, fit perfectly. I'm a big dude with long legs.
That's every 911. That's called a Porsche 911.
It's not stick
it's
was
not
like
unique to the Singer.
Short shift
you
gear
can get
lever.
that for far cheaper than $1 million.
Oh, it looked so beautiful.
That car is twice the price of this beautiful Ferrari.
But it's also something that I don't think would depreciate, right? I mean, I'm going to wait 3 years to get the Singer, and it is going to cost. I think they start at like $900, and then when you option in the things that you need, it gets to $1,112.
Why are you making purchasing decisions based on resale value? You're preemptively planning to sell it?
No, I wouldn't.
No,
I wouldn't.
You cannot go down that trail.
Man, I really want to drive one. They're so pretty.
It's a Porsche.
Yeah.
Of course it's pretty. It's a Porsche.
But do you think would you not rather have a Singer than any other any other period correct 964?
No.
No?
No.
Wow.
I go for the real thing. The real thing is far less expensive, far more reliable, not hyped, and I don't need to I'm with Chris Botti. I don't need to be spending $1 million+ on something that I can get for far cheaper. I can buy 5 cars for that price.
Right.
No,
I mean, I don't have $1 million+, so I'm not going to be doing it. It's just if we're dreaming about, a Ferrari Duccio Cilindri, whatever. What is it called? Ducci Cilindri.
I know that's not perfect, and I'm going to get Italians telling me how I'm saying it wrong because all of you correct me all the time, and I see every single comment. But it is approximately Ducci Cilindri, and I'm going to stick to that.
All right, with that, let's get into our interview with Grammy Award-winning trumpeter Chris Botti. Here it is.
Chris, I'm fascinated by you because, of course, I knew of you beforehand, Grammy-winning, multiple Billboard #1 chart topper. Of course, your reputation precedes you, but I had the opportunity to meet you because of mutual friends in the car world. I think it was Shmuley who first introduced us. And so I'm really fascinated by this other side of your life. Of course, everyone knows you for the music, but tell us you are really deep into cars right now. And how did that happen? How did you start? And were you always interested in cars?
So the craziest thing is that this has only been a year and 7 months almost to the day in making. And I'm 60, I'll be 62 coming up in October. So wow. Answer to your question, no. Now, 10 years ago, I lived in LA and I had a couple of sports cars, but I bought them for a different reason. I bought them to go out to dinner like people do in Los Angeles in general. And then a year and 7 months ago, I bought a place in LA. And I bought a sports car in the exact same manner that everyone does, and it was a Turbo S cab. And I was on tour in Tokyo, and they have a brand new Porsche experience there. And my friend Michelle, that now works at Singer, that runs the Porsche experience, ran the Porsche experience in LA, said, "Hey Chris, I got a surprise for you. Go to the Porsche experience in Tokyo." And she hooked me up with someone, and this gentleman came up to me and said, "My name is blah, 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 and I'm a German race car driver. Do you want a couple of hot laps in a GT4 RS?" Now, granted, I'd only been back in cars after 10 years in New York without having any cars and didn't know anything about it. And I never heard of a GT4 RS. And I got in the passenger seat, and this guy's hurling over the curbs and like race car drivers do. But the sound, it's the way that my whole life is run by sound, the trumpet, the visceral sound. And I just went like, wait, what? And this was February. And then like a couple of weeks later, we had a concert at the Wiltern we did a concert at the Wiltern in Los Angeles. And I just said to my guy that sold me my Porsche GT4, Turbo, "Have you ever heard of a GT4 RS?" This is the question I asked him. Like, "Have you ever heard of one?" And he goes, "Yes, Chris." And it's like, And he goes, oddly enough, I just got one in brand new that somebody panicked on. Ooh. Do you want it? I said, I'm there tomorrow. So I swapped out my turbo into this GT4 RS, and this is now 1 month into this addiction. And Amazing. I called my friend and he said, I said, this is such an incredible experience, but how do I get the same sort of experience that I had in Tokyo at the Porsche experience?
You're already chasing the high.
Yeah. And he goes, you might try this club called Thermal. And I said, Thermal. Google Thermal. Hey, can I come down and see your place, Thermal? So now I have a track on the straightaway at Thermal and 6 cars, and I'm, lost the plot, as they say in England.
Amazing. Dude, that is insane. I have never heard of such a rapid progression. First of all, I want to dig into the sound.
Questions.
Yeah, I have a million questions, but I want to dig into the sound aspect because obviously you're famous, as Hannah said, for the music. And I think, we talk about the trumpets on a motor, at least the old, carbs. And what is it about the sound of this GT4, which is, it's a naturally aspirated sound, so it's different than your Turbo S, right? But what is it about that got you?
Well, I think initially it was the combination of the way that gentleman drove, because, I was only aware of how you drive a car on the street. Now having been living and really focusing on track driving, because I live on a track, you drive completely different. So when you get in a car with a professional driver and they're hurling up, like I said, on the curbs and doing all that stuff, and the way the throttle and the brake interaction is completely different, but the sound flipped everything from being like, here's a car that I want to take out to dinner and hand to the valet and be kind of showy in Los Angeles, to a completely personal, private, almost meditative experience that, I never take any of my cars now out to dinner. I just take an Uber, but it just in that one instant transformed everything to this, oh my goodness, this is a very personal journey. And now, subsequently meeting Hannah and all these different people in the car world, it's exposed me to all these other social interaction, which is completely different than the music world, which is certainly completely different than the jazz world, But the sound became just so important to me, and I just, it's just like a dopamine dump that I can't really hard to explain. And then the similarities between learning the trumpet and learning how to drive on a track are almost two train tracks. How? Because you don't just get up and play the trumpet. You have to have, awareness of what's happening. So when you drive on a track or when you drive a car, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have hours and hours and hours of muscle memory. And that means, now I have 2 sim rigs and blah, 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 blah. And I spent all my time and energy on coaching the way I would when I learned a musical instrument. So when you have someone like Patrick Liddy, who's like a very, very famous driving instructor and driver for all these different things, coaching, he's my coach, and he's sitting in there and going, okay, you're an old guy that's had a sports car, but you have no idea what you're doing. Now, let's start from the beginning. Here's how you activate the throttle, and here's how you activate the gas, and here's the race line we're looking for, and here's how to let the car hit the apex. And I'm going like, that's kind of similar to the way that your airstream and your support and your vision for playing jazz. And when you're on a stage with jazz musicians and they're going crazy, it's kind of like being in the car. You have to be very meditative and calm in and amongst all this insanity of the engine and the speed.
That's amazing.
Wow.
By the way, I just looked up. So I remember fitting a Ducati with velocity stacks. They're also called trumpets, which is to help the air intake smooth out before it gets into the cylinder. So I think it's funny that I never really had thought about the connection between cars and music before, but clearly there is a strong one. But you're talking about something different because you're obviously like an obsessive not in a bad way, but like you get into something and you go head first into it, right? You've already got a place at the track, multiple cars, and a super famous coach. Do you ever fall into other things like that, or is it just like, is this the first thing since playing the trumpet that's sucked you in?
Well, I mean, I guess maybe 20 years ago, I did the same, 25 years ago, and I still am deep into it. I do a real intense yoga practice, and I do it every day. With my teacher, I'm very committed to that. But nothing has got my escape valve working like cars and the sound of cars and the way that whole community is so radically different than music. And it's been so refreshing. But I remember for that first, few months, like on the tour bus, I would just listen to different reviews of cars, but I just listened to the sound of the engine, the note of the different brands of the cars, and how it was just so meditative. And we'd be on a 10-hour bus ride somewhere, and 3 of the hours I'd be listening to car reviews. Wow. And so I could just listen to that beautiful engine note, and it was an escape valve for me from all the craziness of the world or my touring schedule or what I have to think about. Like, please, no more trumpet, I can only practice that thing so many hours a day and be obsessed with that. And this has been an incredible journey. And they're so very, very similar, because the detail you have to be on track or to like pay attention driving, the way your vision has to be up, the way you have to I don't know, what kind of cars do you like? Do you want to go to a race car? Do you want to stay in Porsche? Do you want to blah, 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 all the very detailed things? And then you got to find a favorite brand of car. And then the all-seeing, truth is that you just motor through tires, which I didn't know anything about. So anyhow, I'm learning along the way.
It's so interesting, Chris, to hear you talk about remaining centered and calm and in control and very self-possessed in the middle of chaos, and how you talk about that in music and in cars. And I've observed that in you. When I saw you in LA perform earlier this year, I was astounded. I remember thinking, how does he keep track of where he is in the middle of all of this? And I'm curious, was there anything you had to unlearn that in your driving that Patrick is telling you you need to unlearn this behavior because it's actually not serving you when you're driving?
Yeah. So my daily practice since I'm 7, on trumpet, you spend the first 45 minutes of your practice session. And if I practice, say, 4 hours in a day, it's like a long, steady, long tones, getting the air moving, and it's to get. And I guess the most difficult thing is to learn how braking is such a vital part, and how you trail brake. And then you have to release the throttle and squeeze back, all of that, where instead of going to Patrick, I got this, the way you do on the trumpet, you have to back up and be that 7-year-old kid playing the trumpet again with the long tones. And Patrick, we go, hold on a second, Chris. Now let's go smooth as fast. So let's do a few things and follow this line smoothly. Don't say I got this, because you don't got it, and that. So we begin again. It's that sort of thing that you learn all the time. And all the guys down at Thermal that are really excellent drivers, they're just like, say, do whatever you want to do, but don't ever walk out on the track and say, I got this. Go out on the track always with a coach for the first few months. Make sure you have, if you're racing, if you're out driving on the track 3 or 4 days, make sure 3 of them are with Patrick. And okay, cool. I've just listened and took, and tried to take my cues from that. And it's like learning trumpet all over again. But at least it's something bright and shiny in my mind. And the sounds are epic. And I live right on the straightaway of Thermal. So, you're woken every morning. Well, I'm up anyhow. But I mean, after I race, if I go up to my place and I'm practicing trumpet and I hear those, a cup car swooshing by or whatever, it's music to me to hear the way that the car drifts off into the distance. Because it's not like you're watching a NASCAR at Thermal. There's 1 or 2 cars on the track at once. So it's got this lilt to it. It's almost, like an art piece with noise out in front of your window. It's so cool.
Chris, can you explain? A lot of people don't know what Thermal is. and don't know how it's set up. Obviously, it's a track, and I guess you can somehow sleep there. Do you have a condo there? Do you have a garage where you keep cars? Like, explain to everybody what it is, because we hear about it so much, and I've never had anyone actually sit down and tell me exactly what the layout is like. Is it a club you join? Like, what's the story with that?
Right. It's a non-advertised. Like, it's all word of mouth. Now, Indy does a race there. It's home of Lamborghini. BMW has their BMW Experience track. It's a property located about 15 miles south or east, I don't know, somewhere close to Palm Springs, California. And it's the only club that's currently open in the world it's a members only racetrack. It would be like the high end equivalent of a golf club, which there are many in Palm Springs, but it's a big no thank you to golf. And it's just about racing cars. And so you have to own all the condos are situated around this 5-mile track, and they can be broken up into 3 different formations. And so you have to buy a condo, and they're all right on the track for the most part. And you buy in there, and then you buy into, so there's a clubhouse and a swimming pool and a gym and a little hotel, and it's wonderful. And so all the people are complete crazy about cars, and then it's just, and I think there's one outside of Nashville that's going to come up in the next year called Flat Rock Motorsports, and so that's going to be the next one. But I don't think in the world there's a dedicated, like, there's no track days. They have open, they'll invite you to something, but you just can't show up at Thermal. It's a private racetrack. So hence, most of the time, like, if I'm on the track for 3 or 4 hours, I mean, hardly ever do I even encounter anyone else.
That's so cool.
You know what I mean? I'm certainly getting passed by, a Porsche Cup car, like, but it's not like I'm, battling, like I'm at Laguna Seca, trying to, like, figure out what I'm doing. And then there's a pit crew that's there for everyone. So it's an amazing experience, because you just text and say, could you bring my GT4 RS or my GT3 RS down to the track? And they're like, no problem. And it's down there, and the fluids and the brake pads and everything are all sorted. And the minute your tires are out, they go, we're replacing your tires, Mr. Botti. And I'm like, okay, so it's very, it's very white gloved in that way. Because if I went to Laguna Seca by myself, I wouldn't have a clue what to do. So, that's a whole nother thing I have to learn about.
But is everybody good enough that you are always feeling safe? I mean, do they demand that you have some kind of, skill or instruction in order to be on the track?
Well, so I would say I began at Thermal as the janitor, right? I mean that in all the best possible way. I was the novice, and I was horrible. But they begin you out by taking you out, in lead follows, and then with coaches. And then I was very dedicated. There are monster drivers there. I mean, given the age group and stuff like that, but they're all really big car junkies. They have cup cars. There's, most of the cars at Thermal are GT3 RSs and up, cup cars, BMW race cars, and then people have all the exotics and the Ferraris and all that stuff there. And they're excellent drivers. There are a ton of people there that are in the Ferrari Challenge. Ferrari has its own pit crew there. Simone from Ferrari takes care of all the Ferrari Challenge customers. The True Speed is located there. They take care of all the cup cars. So anyone that has the cup car, they bring down. It's all boom, like they put them up on the jacks and check everything out. And I'm still in the street car category, but they're all excellent drivers, and they're all more than happy to share. That's one of the things. The community is so fantastic. They're more than happy to share. Hey, Chris, I was coming up next to you. Like, I could see you were a little nervous. Just stay your line. My job in the cup car is to overtake you. Don't freak out. That was the first thing I learned. Nice. That was the first month. Yeah. And so now on my track, thanks to Patrick, I've knocked my lap times down from, horrible to like 30 seconds off, and I'm in there. So it's good. I feel quite confident.
I'm really struck, Chris, by the fact that you are, very accomplished in your professional life. You're also, over 60, and here you are being completely open to learning a completely new thing and to starting out at the lowest rung again in a completely new discipline. And I do think that's pretty unusual. So where does that openness and attitude come from?
Well, I'm always into people that do things, whatever their craft is, whether it's like hanging out with particular yoga folks or the driving, like someone like Patrick. I'm always into people that have achieved something at a super, super high level. If I could be an observer of that or try to do that. At one point in my life, I was deep into chess, but man, that is like, that's something that torments you, kind of like race car driving a little bit, torments you, But I love people that are dedicated and take no prisoners when it comes time to learning a craft. Mm-hmm. And I can sit there and admire someone like Patrick driving so incredible and go, wow, I'm sitting in the seat and he's rocking this 488 challenge. And it's so musical, the way he's driving. It's just effortless. And the way he is able to like explain it to me, to be able to sit and get a little bird's eye view of that is a really, really, I feel very super fortunate. I don't have a family. I don't have kids in college or and so I kind of,
you're free.
I'm being a kid again, sort of,
yeah.
I feel like I'm a kid at band learning how to play the trumpet and watching the experts and going, wow, that would be cool to do. Now, I know I'm never going to be a race car driver or anything like that, and I don't necessarily think I would ever, like, my friends are all doing their next year, you need to do the Ferrari challenge. Well, I'm like, well, first news flash, I never have a weekend off. So that'll never happen. And I don't know if I ever want to necessarily be up, like bumping and doing all. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I care about my hands and my chops and stuff like that. I just love what it does to my brain, the meditative stuff and learning. And when you hit that apex and the times get better, it's a thrilling thing. And then the sound of the engine. And then, you get into stuff like, then there's the actual make of cars and the cars that you really want to, whether it's a McLaren or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or something, then that's a whole nother drug. And
I want to ask you about that.
Really cool.
Because I know you've got a certain Lamborghini on order. I've seen you drive a McLaren. We know you have some Porsches. Can you talk to us about the difference in tone and sound and how between those cars, what each of those brings you? What do you hear in between those different vehicles?
Yeah, well, the internet, is a pretty powerful, persuasive tool. But I got my GT4 RS and it was awesome. And so I that's my main kind of track thing. And then I saw a Matt Farah video where he had and then I went out and I bought a GT4 because I wanted a manual. Because you can't be engaged fully unless unless you have a manual. So I went out and I bought a manual GT4. And I saw a Matt Farah video where he sent his car to Rick DeMann at DeMann Motorsports back in Nyack, New York, and they put a 4.5, 550 at the wheel, 500 and something torque into that GT4, and it is a monster. I mean, it is crazy. The torque is just insane. And so the tone went from the GT4 RS screaming up here, like down to this kind of battleship, muscle car Porsche.
That's my language.
And that was really, that was really, really cool. The Rick DeMann engine thing, I'm going to keep that car forever. It's awesome. Then I got the new 992 GT3 RS, which I haven't driven that much. And my coaches are all kind of like, Chris, you got to keep learning. Don't do what guys do and put slicks on your GT3 RS yet. Wait another year, get more grooving on the GT4 RS and confident. Don't use a cheat code yet, because that is a cheat code. The GT3 RS with slicks on the track, you can, so you're better, but you're getting too many aids. Learn how to drive better. And so that car is going to be candy for a while. And then I got kind of hooked and crazed into McLarens. So I have just took possession of a new 750S. I had a 720S, so I got a 750S.
That's the one I saw, I think.
Yes, yeah, the green one.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah. And then the drug that's to be delivered, which I think I'm getting one of, if not the last Lambo STO. Wow. And Patrick took me out on a hot lap in an STO, and the theater of it just, whoa. I mean, since that original thing with the GT4 RS, I haven't felt like that kind of theater without being in a race car. When he took me in the 488 challenge, yeah, well, that's incredible, but I'm not ready to suit up and do a race car yet. So the STO is coming in about a month and a half, and so I'm excited for that.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's, I mean, when we ask exotic car company executives to give us a list of the cars they would like to have in their garage, they list inevitably the STO. Which I haven't personally driven yet, but that's one to drool over for sure.
It's so beautiful. I mean, I think it's bonkers crazy, but it looks so exotic, and I just love it. And I got to drive one. Obviously, Patrick drove me first. He drove me back to back. He drove me in the GT3 RS on the track, and then we hopped right into the brand new STO. And I mean, I'm not sure even which one is faster, but the sensation, the theater of, like, you know, turning it on and just having the Italian supermodel scream at you was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, so you've had your flat sixes and then V8s, and that's V10. So is there a difference? Do you notice in sound that you prefer one or the other? When I was a kid, I had this CD of various engine, setups, and I would always try and be able to recognize, a V12 versus an inline six. And is there one that you prefer, as a musician?
So, I mean, first of all, there's a really big difference between, if anyone's checking out the McLaren 720 and they're thinking about hopping into 750, do it, because the exhaust is radically different. I'm really loving it. Now, my friend has a Ferrari 812 Superfast, which I'm going like, it's great. So then the GT3 RS, I put an exhaust, an R1 Motorsports exhaust on it, so it sounds almost like an F1. Ooh. I have a feeling after being in that V10 and test driving the STO, I'm really gonna love that V10. I think that sound to me sounds really, really cool. Of the cars that I own, the only other thing that I've heard, my friend that you met,
I did.
Hannah, Michelle, she has an 812 Superfast, and that engine sounds pretty darn musical to me, So, but they all sound musical for a different reason. It's kind of like, do you want to play a bebop song, a rock song,
totally.
Something. My GT4 RS, when I take it out on the track, I'm just like, wow, this still sounds amazing to me.
The reason I thought of it is because, I mean, you have, 10 or 11 studio albums, and I was looking at your listings and thinking, I wonder if you ever put or thought about putting an engine in a song, because Eddie Van Halen famously used his Lamborghini Miura at the beginning of Panama.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he just backed it into the studio and just cranked it up.
Oh, that's so cool. I got to work with him once. He was very nice.
You mentioned Singer, by the way. I went and saw Singer downtown yesterday. I'd never, besides on the internet, seen and been able to touch and sit in, and what a gorgeous vehicle that is. Something totally different. It's not something that you'd necessarily want to take on the track, more of a daily driver. But you ever look at those cars?
My friend Michelle, that got me into this whole nonsense from the beginning, is the head marketing person. I'm sure she greeted you at Singer in California. I don't know if they're beautiful, they're bespoke, they're incredible. For me, I'm not sure if I'm gonna lay out $1.5 million, if I would rather have 3 or 4.
You can get a lot of cars
Porsches
for that.
or something. Yeah, and that I would feel like driving, if something ever happened to it, it's like, okay, well, insurance or something would cover it. When you start getting into that world of going out with a Pagani or a singer or something like that, and if something happens, I might feel just too insecure. Now, watch. I would love to. In my heart, I would love to have a roof or a singer, a roof. Of course. But I mean, these are these are wonderful things to think about.
Are you ever inside EVs that have sort of the synthetic engine note? Okay, so you just made a cross sign on video. I'm so curious.
I don't want an EV toothbrush. I don't want an EV sock warmer. I am anti-EV in every single possible way. Mainly because it's being dictated by our government, or the regulations set forth by the UK governments, because they're offering tax breaks for people to get into these. Look, if it was the marketplace to marketplace and we just said, here, we're going to start the EV, I would be all down for it. But what I'm anti-EV about is governments imposing on business people. It would be like somebody coming to me and saying, hey, Chris, we really like your concert, but we're going to take out the key of F for you. You can no longer play in the key of F. You can do everything else, but you can't play in the key of F. So we're going to put a little muffler on your trumpet that's going to regulate you so you can't play in the key of F. I'd be like, are you insane? So I think that EVs have hindered the ability for combustion engine cars to go forward rapidly, to make progress, because they don't know what the landscape is like. Like Ferrari and Porsche and McLaren, and what's going to happen? What are these governments? Why is government involved in this thing? And it's my personal opinion. Obviously, I'm in the minority, but I just don't think petrol cars that are made by Porsche, McLaren, Lamborghini, and Ferrari are hurting the world as much as the fact that it's called global warming, and China and India are not playing by global warming conditions.
I don't want to stoke the fire, Chris, but consider the fact that those subsidies that the government is paying out to support the EV industry are being financed with our tax dollars.
Correct.
Hello?
And they're not. You have a whole mess of people that look at, if I said to you, hey, I have a 2008 iPhone, I'm going to sell it to you for $100, you'd be like, are you crazy? I don't want a 2008 iPhone. So that subsequently, that's why the EV markets, if you bought a Porsche Taycan Turbo S for $225 and now it's worth $80 3 years later. And so it takes away the whole enthusiast thing of, oh my goodness, you have a 911R, dude, that's rocking. That whole thing's going to be gone with EVs. Yeah. So and because my EV or my daily commute is Delta Airlines, I'm in this weird, or Lufthansa or whatever. I'm in an airplane every day. When I'm home, I don't need to really go anywhere from point A to B. The only reason I ever get into a car is because I want to escape. I want meditation. I want to drive on the track. So I'm not commuting to work. I get it. If you live in a metropolitan city and you want to go point A to B, sure, I guess. But for me, I need to hear a sound of an engine. And the last thing I want is tech in a car. And I heard that Ferrari, you guys can tell me, I heard Ferrari is going to do away with radio and navigations in the car, and just like Apple CarPlay is your thing. It's just going to have a hookup for that. And I think that would be just awesome. When I get in my GT4 Cayman, there's nothing in it. It's just
analog.
I just love that. I want an analog everything.
I don't think Ferrari's going to do that. They can't do that. Maybe on some special edition.
They're just going to get away with no more nav, because your nav comes all from your phone.
Right. But
no more
I'm gonna have to
radio
ask
because
them
it
on
comes
that.
from your phone.
We'll ask. Hannah will ask.
I'll ask.
I think
I'll
they
find out.
can't. And I will say, by the way, that doesn't always work that well. I got a Challenger a couple years ago, and they said, "Do you want to have a navigation system built in?" And I said, "No, why? I always use the one on my
never
phone."
use a car nav system.
But
They never
there are
work.
times if you don't have it that you're going to need it.
But by eliminating it, it makes the car timeless.
No, I agree.
Yes.
100. I
So
agree
if
with that
you're
100%.
If you're just always plugging in and your
100%.
time is inserted by your phone, because in 10 years it's going to be different.
No,
you know?
if it's not your daily driver, if it's a special thing that you bought for your passion, a work of art, something that because you are
Bugatti
love to
Touran.
drive, then I
This
would
is
love to
exactly
have a
what
car
they
that
did.
has no navigation,
Yes.
no screen, no nothing in it. You know, I mean,
Dials and
Yeah.
buttons and knobs.
And
Yes.
you know, one of the main, like the lovely people at McLaren, and I love Ferraris too, but the lovely people at McLaren sent me a 750 to try out, and I loved it. And that very same week, I drove the 296 Ferrari, and first of all, you're sitting with the steering wheel, and there's so many controls on the steering wheel that you can accidentally hit or something like that. And
I mean, in
I was just
the
like,
Ferrari.
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
surprised.
and-
I'm surprised to hear you say
too
that. Though.
techie.
Well, McLaren is sort of notorious for not having great tech. You know, having issues.
No, the 750 is dialed.
It's dialed in. This is good to hear.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome, and the build quality is awesome, and the sound of the engine is considerably more cracking than the 296.
By the way, in a
is-
car
I
like
just
that,
love it.
Chris,
And the steering wheel is plain. It's
Yes.
just Alcantara and carbon fiber and no other buttons, nothing.
in a car like that, and I mean, you're listening to music all day, you're playing music all day. Do you just like to hear the sound of the engine and not turn on the stereo?
I never turn on anything. I mean, if it's like a 4-hour drive, I might check, or I might maybe for a second dial up a podcast for a second.
You know,
But
hot pursuit.
I don't really ever listen to music because you have two different kinds of music. You don't listen to Beethoven and rock music at the same time. And to me, the sound of the engine is like Beethoven. On my McLaren, I can put the window down in the back and keep the top up and hear that engine crack along. And in my Porsche, you can't really hear anything from a radio. So either the demand engine or the GT3 RS, you're like screwed.
Have you
Are there any cars that stand out that you thought that sounds terrible? That engine sounds terrible.
Boy, I probably haven't. I mean, of like good cars. I mean,
I can't even think of one myself. I even like a diesel.
When they're too trying to be muffled. Like, I don't mean like terrible, but like when you get if you get into an M5, it just feels like we're trying to build something here to be comfortable. I don't really want to get into a car and feel comfortable. Like, to me, I would never own a Parasangue ever. Like, I don't want screens on the ride. I don't want to be comfortable. I want to get into a car and have my blood pressure brought up. And then if my daily is going to be the demand engine, which is GT4s aren't like super comfortable, and the engine sounds like a freight train, that to me, but that's my daily, it's sure. Or my McLaren's my daily, but it's not like this luxurious, trying to like be away from, and
you don't need
go
to be
over
cosseted.
all the bumps.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think, Chris, you're not often exposed to like an old RX-7 with a glass pack muffler on it. That's not a good sound. What about a single seater? Do you ever get a chance, at Thermal to get into,
I've seen them all, and my friend just ordered a T50, which is coming. So
there you go.
he's gonna give me a little spin around in that. And I've seen, Patrick's always out there in that LMP and all that stuff, but I mean, I've just seen it. I haven't gotten in it yet.
What a cool journey, dude. You've come so far so fast, and yet I feel like you're going to be on this road for a while. So
yeah.
It's just so fun. I mean, and I had no idea how like incredibly like the more you learn about it, the further away the journey becomes, right? Because it's like the way these guys talk about, now I know about like how to, should I modify cars, and it starts with the exhaust and then the coilovers and the tires and the blah, 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 and then they, all the tuning and the mapping and the blah, blah, blah. And I'm going like, oh God, I thought trumpet players were geeky. This is like next level.
Well, that brings up, I do have two more questions for you. Number one, what is the goal with all of this? You've said you don't necessarily think we're going to see you in the Ferrari Challenge or any, F1 support races or anything like that. But what is the goal? That's first question.
So I have there's a gentleman that lives on the track, Paul, that lives around the corner, my neighbor, and he's like, Chris, he has he has the Singers and he has the Cup cars and he has the T50s and all that stuff, and I was like, Chris, I was like, Paul, do you when you drive, are you going to take that T50 out on the track? And he goes, yeah, that's the only place I'm going to take on the track. And he goes, Chris, you need to like shift your thing instead of like trying to think going to be a race car driver. No, this is thermal's like the place that you can go and not be arrested. It's safer than driving to get gas in West Hollywood where I live. I mean, honestly, I feel terrified sometimes in the streets of LA, like with all the people walking out in the middle of the night or skateboarders or
zombies,
road ragers or whatever. I'm like, whoa. So I'm trying this year. My goal is to like, now that I've gotten to a certain level where I can drive. Now my goal is to like ratchet it down a little bit and find out how to just enjoy and have fun, to go out and not necessarily chase the quickest and get better at the lap, and go more for like, boy, this is just back to that incredible sensation of the sound. And now that I've gotten to a certain level, keep refining with the coach and go out and have fun and realize how lucky you are to like be able to do this.
I love that. The other thing I'm just so curious, just on a personal level, you've mentioned several times how the car community is very different from the music community. And I'm so curious, what does that mean? What is the music community? I'm not in music. Tell us, what does that mean?
First of all, if you were interviewing an F1 driver, if they were talking about their other F1 drivers, they would probably have competition and snarky things going on and blah, 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 in and amongst themselves. So when I'm around other musicians, it's other musicians. But at a place like Thermal or at a car meet or a Cars and Coffee, they're all doing other things for their lives. And we all come together on this like platform. And so everyone is super open. Whereas I've found like in music, for various reasons or not, people are guarded for their own thing, for their trajectory of their success of their career or where they are, they're trying to climb up the ladder in music, and you feel like a hustle going on. And so there are, people are very successful in what they do in their life, but they're all here for the joy of cars, whether it's the shape or the sound or talking about their lap times or whatever it is. And everyone is just so open, here, man, you want to check out this? Or like, I'm like, okay. I mean, I remember the very first day I got to Thermal, and I had never like really driven on track ever. And the guy, Don Cusick is one of the main guys down. He owns his an Indy team and stuff. Like, he's a big boy. And he just said, here's my brand new GT3 RS, and just threw me the keys. Go, take it out on track. Take it out on track.
Whoa.
And I go like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. And he goes, hey, Ruben, will you hook up a lead follow for him so he can follow someone, get the lines? And I'm like, wow. Okay. Yeah.
That's fantasy, I think.
That's
you
awesome.
Just described it.
Well, or I would feel a little bit intimidated. I went one time with a friend to Augusta, and he was like, you want to play around? And I'm just not good enough to say yes. I had to say no.
Right. Right. I mean, the other thing is that as I get to the back nine of my life, so to speak, I just don't want to open that can of worms that every older gentleman does, and that's called golf. Because that is something I don't want anything to do with golf. So this is like a perfect way to develop a friendship with the community and to get excited about something which isn't have to do with golf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna do wellness checks on you.
That's a change.
Yeah, that could be dangerous. So we'll check back in with you to make sure.
Hannah, I was thinking exactly. I was like, I want to check in with Chris, like I don't know, every 6 months or at least once a year, just to see how he's doing here.
Right.
Because what a cool story.
Right.
I mean,
I know.
That is just amazing.
I knew you'd love him.
And it's so cool that first of all, that you picked this up in Tokyo, right? Like. What the hell?
Well, I mean, Michelle was the first one it was a Porsche experience in LA when I went down kind of as people do as Disneyland. But the difference is that, you do on the little drip pad and all that stuff, is that no one took me around with that.
Yeah, a hot
took me around and said, we're not worrying about any regulations. I'm a German race car driver. Just to put it in perspective, my saxophonist who's like 30 and, he's in great shape. I took him to the Porsche experiences we were in Tokyo day off. So when the German race car driver came in, we had already spent the whole hour on the track. When the German guy comes over and says, would you guys like a hot lap? I said, Chad, would you like to go first? And Chad said, yes, that'd be great. They came right back in after like 2 minutes. I said, what happened? And Chad said, I'm out.
No.
I'm not. I said, bring me in.
Yeah.
So this guy was taking no prisoners. So I lasted 2 or 3 laps. That's what reworked my brain. So they don't do that at the Porsche experience. Yeah.
That is amazing. Dude, I'm so glad that Hannah brought you on the podcast because it's been a pleasure.
Well, it's an honor to be on it.
I can't wait to meet you in person.
And
such
We're
a
gonna have you
cool
back
story.
Just for some check-ins and checkups.
Come to our show as my guest and get my number from Hannah in December and bring some friends and it's really fun. It's 2 shows a night. Every night, Christmas night, New Year's night, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
So I think we begin like around the 10th of December and go all the way to the 7th of January.
Is this at the Blue Note in New York?
At the Blue Note,
cool.
yeah.
Cool.
Nice. I absolutely would love to, and I will take you up on that, so appreciate it.
Thanks,
Have a great show.
Thank you.
Chris.
Such a thrill.
See ya.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, cool. The guy is amazing, and I
He's
can't
so
wait
likable.
to go see his shows. I mean, he's clearly like somebody who he said he practiced his trumpet like 4 hours a day.
Even still.
This
is someone who played Carnegie Hall when he was a child. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, you said he played with Sinatra.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Also, I love that he's from Oregon because I also am from Oregon.
Yeah.
So, we have that in common, Pacific Northwest.
Oregon must be sweet. I've never been there, but
it was super sweet in the 80s, let me tell you.
Is it an awesome place to live, or does it rain way too much?
No, that's only on the ocean side. On the other side of the mountains, it's like 300 days of sun.
And I got to go there. I mean, are you like just hiking and camping and drinking Rainier beer all the time? Or
Dude, you need to go to Bend, Oregon, and do a bunch of things.
Yeah,
that's the place to be.
I would love to do that. I won't be doing that anytime soon, but I will be going to the Bridge this weekend.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm excited for you.
So that's a car show in the Hamptons. And
so posh.
I get the feeling it's going to be, I noticed today when they sent me the invite, they're also selling a limited edition cashmere hoodie.
For over $300.
It is $400,
that seems
and
good.
it doesn't look worth it, frankly.
No. You mean the Playboy bunny motif?
Yeah,
No.
I don't know about that.
Not original.
Also, all the rules are like, everybody has to have like a ticket and a QR code, even an infant. And they were like, if you show up with an infant who doesn't have a QR code, they will be turned away at the gate. What's up with that?
It's not cool. It's not cool.
An infant child?
It's a little heavy-handed, and I don't like it when car gatherings are heavy-handed on that type of thing. This is just what I was talking about at Pebble Beach. Come on. Relax. It's not that deep.
The best thing is it's for a children's charity, and they're turning away infants at the gate?
Let's put that to the test. You've got a couple infants. Why don't you take them and see how that goes?
I should just show up with baby Lola.
This is our sting operation, Matt.
No, I'm excited
we'll write an expose.
It's like post-war race cars. I guess there used to be a racetrack there, and so they want cars that could feasibly have run on that track. But I'm guessing it's also just a ton of super rich people who have amazing vehicles, and I am excited to look at them.
You're here for it.
Yes. I hope there's a Lamborghini Revuelto there, because I have not seen one in person.
I bet you. I bet they've started deliveries. There are some out there.
I'm looking
I actually
forward.
saw one on the street the other day.
I'm looking forward to that. There will be a Revology Mustang there, so I'll finally get to see the car I've been so excited about for the last year.
Make them pay you for your work. For your PR work, them give you a cut.
I'm going to get in and make sure everything works perfectly. The door handles don't come off in your hand.
You better really thrash that.
I would love to thrash that car.
Hey,
and
people need to know.
I guess there will be probably a ton of Ferraris there, but also probably some stuff I never had even thought of. What are the kind of race cars that like the cool kids love? Like Type B rally cars or whatever.
Oh, yeah, like the Lancia Delta.
Yeah.
And like all the old Audis from the 80s.
Yeah, those are the pictures that are in their press material.
Oh, yeah, those are cool. Those are cool.
Bridge. What are you doing this weekend?
You know what? I don't know what I'm doing.
Are you driving anything interesting? Right now I'm driving a giant new Infiniti QX80. It's like...
You know what? I'm going to get that for a polo match in like 2 weeks, so they must...
Perfect, because you could fit a few horses in the back. It is a land yacht, and I love...
Do the car seats fit in it?
Yes, rear-facing car seats fit. I love, gigantic vehicles, American... Well, it's not American, but gigantic vehicles like this made for the American market, cool. Just because you feel like you own the road. But I've only spent a day in it, so I'm going to withhold judgment.
Fine.
The tech is a little bit... It's like Windows versus Apple. The tech is a little bit Windows.
Oh.
It's like a computer nerd put together the layout, and it's hard to understand.
We'll have to compare notes.
Yeah, we will.
That.
It's kind of, it's like luxurious seating and leather, I guess.
Okay.
But it's not a V8 or anything more than that. So if you're going to make a luxurious vehicle, don't you need to put at least 8 cylinders into it?
If it's an SUV, come on. Who cares? I mean, if it's like a family hauler.
When's the last time they had 10 cylinders in SUV?
10?
Yeah.
Oh, well, did that ever happen?
Yes, Volkswagen had that in the Touareg. They had a diesel V10 in that.
In Germany, probably.
No, I've seen them here in Bronxville. That was before diesels were pretty much outlawed.
That must have been a long time ago.
But anyway, I'm testing that out. I'm going to be testing out a Lincoln soon, which I haven't driven a Lincoln in so many years. So, but that's another.
Have you driven a Ford?
That's another company where they won't put a V8. No,
why? I mean, is anyone asking?
Infiniti won't put a V8 anymore, and Toyota won't put a V8. Or Nissan won't put a V8 except for the Godzilla.
I feel like you're like comprising a blacklist.
I feel like there's a cabal of like global elders. There's a committee that's decided we're not allowed to have V8s in big trucks anymore. I don't know why.
Illuminati.
Yeah.
Cars.
The same people that are pimping EVs.
Back to Chris. I like that he says what he thinks. I love that in people, that they just say what they think and don't apologize for it. I will tell you, I do have a bit of news coming out later today, which is that Christie's auction house has bought Gooding & Company, which is a surprise. I've already reached out to a bunch of people, and this seems to sort of have come out of the blue, but the transaction is going to close by the end of the year, and from what I'm hearing, I think it's really a good thing because, dude, the auction houses are just dealing with a glut of cars, and there needed to be some consolidation.
But wait, so when I think of the big car auctions that you go to, I think of Gooding, I think of...
Sotheby's.
Sotheby's, exactly. Bonhams. Well, you're naming them all for me.
Yeah, you want me to keep going?
What about Hagerty? Do they have...
that's Broad Arrow.
Broad Arrow.
But
I don't think of Christie's was going to be my point eventually.
Well, I think Christie's would like to move into the car space. And what better way to do that than to simply buy an auction house already doing it? That's a little bit what RM and Sotheby's have done. I think if it's the biggest deal that Christie's has done in the past few decades, which I think it is, I'm guessing this is a 9-figure deal. I can't get intel on how much the deal's worth, but I think it's easily 9 figures from what I hear.
For me, probably the main auction I want to go to is Mecum.
I'm not surprised
because I just want to see
not
the
Barrett
muscle
Jackson.
Cars.
Not Barrett Jackson.
I would go to both.
I know you love Craig.
Barrett Jackson and Mecum are the ones that
Are you going to go down the Florida sales?
It would be a hell of a lot of fun, I think, for me.
I think it would, too.
I would really like that. And I would dress like an absolute clown to do that and bring a whole entourage with me.
That is your happy place.
Yeah.
I know. That's great. I support it.
All right, we have to wrap it up. That's all the time we have.
Oh, I do
this
want to
week.
say one more thing.
Yes?
Peter, thank you for sending us the Hot Pursuit die-cast model car. That was the most thoughtful thing. One of our wonderful listeners sent us a model car.
Hot Pursuit.
With a police car, too, no less. So thank you for that.
I love it. Did it look anything like the police car that pulled you over on the way to Monterey?
Yes, minus about 40 years.
All right. Yes, Peter, thank you very much. I also shot Peter a little email this morning when I saw that. Really appreciate it. You can shoot us an email at hotpursuit@bloomberg.net.
Yeah.
And we'd
love to
respond.
hear from you. We do respond.
Yeah, and give us an idea, Recommend a guest for us.
I was just going to
give
say
us
that.
some questions,
We can take it.
Yeah, some criticism. We
Yeah.
appreciate all of your critique.
Talk to Matt about the Grateful Dead, since I'm inept at that.
Yeah. Well, you got to sit there and just listen to the entire Cornell concert, start to finish, on a drive like LA to Vegas, and then you'll be won over, I'm sure.
It's on my list.
I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.